Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Debbie DiFrancesco is joining us today for the Profit First Success Stories episode. Debbie has been sewing since the age of 7 and founded Creative Hands in 1990 to supplement the family income. Initially, Debbie provided general sewing and bridal alteration services while working a second job as an assistant manager at House of Fabrics, or So-Fro Fabrics, until 1991. 2 years later, Creative Hands transitioned from alterations to exclusively fabricating window treatments and selling hard treatments. Soon after, in 1997, Debbie attended courses at the Professional Drapery Workroom School, later known as the Custom Home Furnishings Academy in Swannanoa, North Carolina, under Cheryl Strickland. Since then, she has participated in the Custom Home Furnishings Conference and International Window Coverings Expo as both an attendee and window treatment fabrication instructor. With an extensive skill set, Debbie has, over the years, moved Creative Hands from the attic of her home to a commercial building. In 2009, she purchased a larger commercial building, which allowed for expansion of the workroom and the transition from a Hunter Douglas Showcase dealership to a Hunter Douglas gallery. Additionally, Debbie is a certified Hunter Douglas consultant, a Hunter Douglas certified master installer, and the current president of the Western New York chapter of WCAA. Debbie shares her journey with Profit First, what was working and not working prior to implementation, and why it became such a need for her. Regardless of whether you have employees or work alone, or if you work in your home or in an outside office space, Profit First really does work. And as you listen, see if you share any similarities to Debbie's business struggles. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Debbie, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm glad to have you here on our Profit First Success Stories. It's been a lot of fun talking to different business owners in our industry who have implemented Profit First and are willing to share a little bit of their journey. So thank you for coming on and doing that.
Happy to do it.
Good. All right. So Debbie, why don't you take a minute and just tell us a little bit about your business?
So I started, like a lot of people in this business, on my dining room table, but back in 1990, as a way to get out of retail, be able to be home for my son and contribute to the family income and that type of thing. So we started there as a general sewing and alterations and bridal business. And as people asked me to be doing window treatments, it very quickly morphed into strictly window treatments. I made that change fairly early on, and I'd say the first 2 or 3 years of it. And then a few years later, it took over my dining room and over my living room, and I don't have a huge house, so we finished our attic off and I moved it up there. But it still took over the house because to haul, 100-yard bolts of lining up 2 flights of stairs, most things landed in the foyers in 2000 and moved things over there just with the intent of, you know what, it's cheaper than renting and it's a place to put my business. And that's where it transformed again into a workroom and showroom. And at that point, somewhere in there, I became a Hunter Douglas Showcase dealer. That we outgrew very quickly. And so in 2008, we purchased a different building and moved in 10 years ago this month, and transformed into a workroom and a Hunter Douglas gallery. So I do a combination of draperies and window treatments and things that are manufactured here or elsewhere, depending on the project, and hard treatments.
Okay, and you're mostly retail, correct?
Exclusive. Mostly retail, yes.
Okay. And when did you start planning for profitability in your business?
A couple of years ago when I took the Profit First class.
Was it the pricing without emotion class?
I think I did the Profit First.
Oh, the online Profit First class. Yes, yes, yes.
Online Profit First. Yeah, exactly. I think I did that. Then
that is so funny. So you've been in business since 1990. I started planning for profit when I took the class.
You know, the interesting thing is when I decided to start this business and said, what do I have to do? And he said, with your idea of a business name, register your business, get a tax number, and you're in business. And so I have a chemistry degree, not a business degree. So I had to learn as I went along and knew that I needed to find something somewhere that wasn't going to cost an arm and a leg and not take up a huge amount of my time, because the business does that,
right?
So that I could learn this stuff.
So where were you and where was your business prior to starting Profit First? So we know now that what the profit wasn't like, you had not already separated out profit at that point, right? In all fairness, but where was your business? What was it that made you think I'm willing to listen to this, or I'm willing to give this a try?
It was the knowledge that I've known for a long time that I needed to do something. I needed to figure this out, needed to figure out how do I bring in a consistent salary instead of just taking randomly owner's draw. And I knew I needed to change my mindset, but just didn't quite know where to go to do that.
Right. So did you have any fears before you jumped into Profit First, or were you just so kind of done with the way you had been doing it that you're like, I'm going to give it a shot?
Well, there was probably that little fear of, okay, yeah, everything's a total disaster. But in going through that, I realized it probably wasn't as big a disaster as I thought it would be. But I tend to just jump in anyway. That is just my personality, to just, oh, okay, I haven't done this before. Let's just give it a try. I've done that with wedding cakes. I started a business and a bunch of other different things over the years. So I kind of leap first and then think about it later.
It's funny, Annette Faber, she's one of our other success stories. And when I was asking her kind of what she thought about Profit First, she said, you just have to hold your nose and jump in. She said, it's like jumping into the end. She's like, you're not going to drown. Water's not going to go up your nose. Just hold your nose and jump in. And when you kind of come back to the surface, it's going to make sense to you. And I thought that was a really great analogy. It sounds very similar to what you're saying. You just jumped right in. So that's cool that you didn't have any big fears. And I know that, everybody's personality is a little bit different. I've had others, I think Tracy made the comment when she was sharing her success story that her fear was that something might be uncovered that she wasn't ready to see.
Yeah.
Yeah? But you jumped in and did it anyway.
Right.
So what have you discovered the most since you've done Profit First? What's been your biggest ahas since you did the Master Your Profit, the kind of understanding how to do Profit First for our industry, which is a little bit different. But once you got it in and got it situated for your company, what were your ahas?
I think just the setting up the accounts, which in my head, I knew kind of intellectually, that needed to be done. But just having that in front of me and saying, yes, do this. That, and then also putting the money aside first for profit was the other part of it, I think.
So how many accounts do you have? Which ones do you open?
6 accounts.
6? Okay. Which one? What do you have?
So I have an income and operating expense account. I have an account for COGS because the nature of my business is very heavy on the COGS end. I have a profit account, savings account. I have an account that I have dubbed owner's salary.
Okay.
I have another account for owner's taxes.
Yes.
And then the sixth account is for sales tax and payroll taxes that are associated with my employee.
Okay. I love, 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 love. So you have 2 new accounts that some of our other success stories haven't put into practice. And I will say, the more you move into retail and the more and the other, Tracy and Annette, at least right now, don't have those accounts because they are more wholesale based to the trade base. But the designers, the retail workrooms, the retail showrooms, the blind shade shutter dealers, like you, right? And like a lot of the other listeners, that cost of goods is huge. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I'm going to say that there are 2 things that I see in the interior design industry, and I'm using that as the umbrella industry for all of us. But there are 2 areas where I see us, 3, that I see us getting our rear ends chewed up. One is by not handling cost of goods properly. And by that, I mean not pulling it out, not saving for it appropriately, so that client B, when they order their stuff, you're using their money to pay off client A's product, right? That robbing Peter to pay Paul. The second one that I see is not saving properly for income taxes for the owner. That's the second big one. And the third one is, if you're not careful, the payroll taxes and the sales tax. Those will get you every single time. And anytime you owe taxes on anything, I can promise you somebody's coming after those, right? The other one, the cost of goods, that's just going to run up a credit card debt. And that one's going to be hard to climb out of. So I just want to celebrate with you that you saw that. In the Master Your Profit course, that's one of the things that we talk about, is how to create those extra accounts. It's not always just the 4 or 5 basic accounts. It's how to create these other accounts based on the way your business runs so that you can have the outcome that you desire. So a big virtual high five to you for recognizing that and setting up those accounts. It does make it move more smoothly in the allocation distribution, and even knowing that I better not over allocate this money because it's for cost of goods. Even if I don't have to pay them for 2 months, I still better hold it out to pay Hunter Douglas, because they're going to want to be paid for anything that you're ordering, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how quickly did you put those extra accounts into play? Did you do those? Did you do all of it at one time, or did you, because a lot of times I share with people, we can start small. If anything, start with a tax account, a profit account, and you can add more as you need them. Did you just open all of them up at one time and recognize it at the beginning? Or did you open up the basic, maybe 4, and then realize, oh, you know what, for the way I'm running the business, I need a couple of extra?
I opened them all up at once. I already had a savings account and a checking account in place for the business. So I went to the bank that I deal with and talked to the business guy there, and we set up another checking account, that's my Expos, and 3 more savings accounts. Okay. So I have 2 checking, 4 savings.
That's the way that a lot of my clients do it. We have a checking account for cost of goods, and we have a checking account for income and operating expenses. And then the rest of them we quite often can use as savings, because you're moving the money back and forth.
Right.
So let me ask this. How did the banker respond?
He thought it was
people get really freaked out about having to go to the bank and open the accounts. And I'm constantly going, trust me, just go open the account. How did your banker respond?
He got it immediately as to what I was trying to do. When I explained I wanted a separate account for these things. And he said, all right. He said, I get that. And he also worked, because we have our main operating accounts for our personal stuff, plus a home equity loan through that same bank. So he was able to actually work everything so that there are no fees at all.
Now, are you with a small hometown bank, or are you with one of the larger national banks? You don't have to tell the bank name, but I'm just curious.
It's a larger I mean, they're in Maryland, all around the whole Northeast.
Okay, so a larger bank. I'll tell you, sometimes credit unions are really great to work with. Smaller banks are great to work with. Now, some of their online activities, not always as great as far as, they're not as advanced. But a lot of times they are easier to work with. But there are ways to work around the fees with even some of the larger companies. I don't pay any fees for all of mine, and I'm with one of the large national banks. And I do it because they have it set up that if I transfer money consistently every month, that there's no fee. So I just have them transfer $25 every month from my operating account to the other accounts, and I take that into consideration when I'm doing my allocation, and then I don't have to pay. And so there are ways to work around it. Some banks also allow and suggest maybe more savings accounts than checking, or checking the savings. So I love how you were able to work around that with your bank to get what you wanted without extra fees.
Yeah, the savings accounts especially said I couldn't take money out more than 3 times a month, and there had to be at least $300 in each account to not incur fees.
Right. So once you kind of can set up some of that, it really becomes not a big deal anymore. And
Right.
The whole thing with the profit first methodology is we're not moving money out of those accounts repeatedly.
Yeah.
So not a huge issue.
Right.
Yeah. So how often do you allocate and distribute in your company?
I started at twice a month. So on the 15th and then the last day of the month. I think in the last few months, I've kind of transitioned more to the end of each month, just because of the way my cycle works. Usually that first half of the month, everything's kind of in a negative mode. So there's not much money to move, but it catches up as the month goes on. So that seems to be where things have settled at this point.
I did the same thing. I personally allocate once a month but I pay myself once a month also. I could pay myself twice a month after I've allocated. It's not a big deal. It's just the way that we do it in our home. And so once a month seemed to be a little bit easier for me and not as laborious. I still try to do all of my payments, though, twice a month, right? Like the 15th and the 30th, or the 10th and the 25th, to kind of put that on the cycle so I'm not in and out all the time if I can help it.
Right.
When did you first start to see Profit First work for your company?
Almost immediately.
Really? Okay. Tell me what you saw and how you knew that, okay, this is going to work.
Well, by knowing that a couple times a month, I do try to move all the sales tax. So I look at my account balances in QuickBooks and say, okay, the sales tax and the payroll needs to be at this, but it's only at this, so I need to move that money over. So it's just that peace of mind, knowing that all that money is there. I make sure the cogs are where they need to be. So I know that all those bills can be paid, and then grow slowly, and then being able to quarterly take that out, a little bit of it out, at least some of it, to do whatever I need to do.
And how do you feel? Did you find that stress relief when it was time to pay sales tax and the sales tax has been taken out, when it's time to pay those payroll taxes and it's done, when it's time to pay the owner's income taxes and you've got it there? What does that relief feel like?
It's like, oh, that's due. No big deal. The money's there.
I think that's so interesting. All right, let me ask you this. And I'm going to know the answer because I think it's universal, but I just want you to say it, right? This is so much fun to hear it. So before you went through the Master Your Profit course and the Profit First methodology, and you didn't have that money saved out that way, it was all like in one big lump bucket at the bank. How did it feel when that day came around and you had to pay? What was the thought that went through your head?
Well, I would start looking like about a week or two before and go, okay, or even mentally in my head as time went on, I would say, okay, I need to kind of make sure that this money stays here, at least for the sales tax end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it was. And it's like, okay, sometimes it was juggling. It's like, how's this all going to work? But now I don't have to think about it. It's almost, I don't want to say
it is this,
but
it's almost automatic.
Yeah.
And I think what is so interesting about it is prior to, because I had the same thing. Now, I didn't have employees, but I certainly had income tax payments. I certainly had these other payments due. And I can remember that feeling of, and I know this, I mean, maybe some people can get this, but when I watched all of that money come out of the operating expense account at one time, even if I had it, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I felt ill. I felt frustrated. I felt angry. Like, how dare them come take this money? I mean, it's crazy, right? It's not what was happening, but in the story in my mind, at watching a large chunk come out at one time was frustrating. However, when I moved over and was allocating a little bit every week, every month, whatever my allocation period was, it had been taken out of my day-to-day money that I was operating the business. Like you, it didn't feel painful. It's like, okay, here you go. I owe the bill. I got the money. Keep moving. I mean, it was the same amount of money. It was all really coming out of the same long-term income, but it felt differently because it had been saved with a purpose. Did you experience that same feeling?
Pretty much, although I have to say sometimes still sending the state that sales tax rate, it's like, really?
Yeah.
But it is their money. So at least it's there, it's set aside, and it's not a part of my day-to-day operations.
So you mentioned earlier that you were paying yourself with owner's draw just kind of as the money was there. Have you found that that has evened out a little bit more now that you've done Profit First, that you can take some consistent salary, even if it's,
A little bit more, right. And so I moved that money over to that owner's salary account. And then that account is actually linked to a personal account that's external, actually in a different bank. So as I need it, I pull it out of there. So
right, but it's all sitting there ready for you, allocated
when I need it, right?
Yes, and that feels good, because then if you choose to take it out or don't choose to take it out, it's still taken out of the day-to-day, right? See, this is what's so interesting. People, the pushback that I get, Debbie, is, oh my gosh, why can't I just keep this all in my head? Do I really need to go set up all of these accounts? And I'm like, yes, go set up the accounts. It is more freeing than you think. You think I don't want to go through the pain and torture of going to my bank or credit union and setting up, but I'm telling you, the pain is short-lived, right? It is short-lived, because when you pull up that online banking and you look at all those accounts and you look at your balance sheet, you see it all. It's there. Nobody's stealing it. Nobody's taking it from you. We're just allocating it. Then when you go in and you look at it, you can make quicker decisions, and it actually frees your brain up to go remember and think about something else. It takes a lot to try to remember every bucket, every amount, what should be where, what should go in, what should go out, if it's there. I mean, to me, that was overwhelming.
We have too many other things to keep track of.
Yes.
As business owners, I'm work with so many different customers in the course of a week that to keep all that straight is enough of a chore. So why, if you don't have to? Really, when I went into the bank, I spent about a half hour with the business banking guy, and then he said, okay, he said, give me a couple days to get this all set up, and I'll call you to come back in and sign everything. So in the end, it was not even 2 hours of my time to set up those accounts.
Right. And that is nothing in the grand scheme of things when you look at how much comes off your plate in the long run.
Exactly.
And there, we talk all the time about efficiency in business, right? We talk about time is money. There, the currencies that we have. And like you said, when we I'm not saying it's completely automatic, because it's not. But when we have it into this well-defined process that works within our company with our flow of cash and the way that we are, bringing product and service in and out the door, and then the money is there, it is totally efficient. And so then that saves us that brain power, like you said, that could be spent somewhere else. But it also makes us confident when we're writing the checks, and confident when we're making decisions, that we have not spent the same money on the same things. I remember when my son was younger, he was actually in Boy Scouts and was doing the personal finance merit badge. And I laughed because they had to look at a certain amount of money and tell however they were going to spend it. And I don't remember, he was young, maybe 12, 13, maybe 14. Anyway, he had a couple $100 and he was trying to figure it out. And it was so funny because he didn't even recognize it. But he was like, okay, so I'm going to buy this tent and I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy this. By the time he was done, he'd spent like on paper $700. He had 150 because he spent the same 150 like 7 different ways. And my husband and I were looking at him, we're like, dude, you can't do that. That's not how this works. It's not like you have 150 and you can go, buy 750 worth of stuff with it. No. So if you've already spent it here, and you got to think about, like we were saying, things like you want to go on vacation. Do you want spending money on vacation? You want to go here. Do you want money there? Well, that money has to come out of that 150 before you decide what you're going to go purchase, right? So that's what it looks like just in a very granular young person scenario. But in our companies, if we're not careful, we can do the same thing. We look at the bank account, we see there's a lot of money. We don't recognize, if we're not careful, that that's cost of goods that's going to go out. And we think we can pay more to ourselves, or we can do this, or we could go buy this new machinery, or we can make some other business decision without recognizing that that money has already been promised to do another job, and it can only do one job.
Exactly.
So did you after you got your money allocated and you look at it, did you find that the analysis of what your business could do, the amount that it could truly live on, did you find that changed, or did it?
It has. There's certain minimums with having a building and a retail space and everything. So we're still working through a lot of that. But I also knew, like, I went to the CWC in October and knew in my head there were certain pieces, there's certain things that I wanted to purchase, let's put it that way. I'd gone 28 years without them, but would like to have to increase in that type of thing. And I knew there was money, unspent salary money, and then there was also that quarterly profit distribution that all went towards that. So that that little kernel of money there, so it was paid for and not borrowed.
How else have you used your profit distribution?
Well, equipment, but then Christmas.
Yes.
Family. My daughter is just in a week and a half, we're moving her down to DC because she finally got a job.
Woo!
And she needs to come up with, and because she's been not working,
sure, in college,
job searching, she doesn't have any money right now to come up with a security deposit and first month's rent. And so that money is there to do that. We're not trying to dig through the family accounts, the family operating budget, household budget. So we have it set aside.
Doesn't that feel good?
It does, yes.
What's one of the next big profit goals in your business, Debbie?
Become more profitable.
Yes.
Yeah. Just to keep whittling away at expenses, increasing efficiency, working on pricing and all of those other little things that are really big things that need to be sorted out.
Right.
Worked through. So,
I love that you shared that too, because even though we put a methodology in place like QuickBooks, to manage the finances, and we put maybe this profit first methodology in place for the money management piece, we're still constantly working on our business all the time to fine tune it and to get there. It is a long-term strategy. It's not always a get in, fix it, it looks great, and get out. This is ongoing all the time. And I think, at least for me, when I take my eyes off expenses, they go up every single time. But if I create that budget for them, like in the Understanding Your Financials course that I teach, to create this budget for everything that you're spending so that you know how to then plan for that operating expense percentage that we're going to create in Profit First, right?
Yes.
Once I've done all that and pulled all these pieces together, it's literally like a puzzle, and you can watch it and you know what's happening, and you can make decisions quickly and not feel like you have, again, robbed Peter to pay Paul. That's a miserable feeling. And so just knowing that you're always working on it and you're always tweaking it is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So Debbie, if you could share anything with our listeners with regard to taking the Master Your Profit course or just Profit First, implementing it, what would you tell them?
Just dive in and do it. It is well worth the time. Some of it is one of those things that, like for me, I knew in my head kind of what I had to do, but the fact that the method is set out so clearly and stepwise, it's less overwhelming, which sometimes stops me from starting something, because it does, like, okay, there's so much to do. Where do I start? And so this is just gives you that step-by-step process.
Yes. I've had quite a few people tell me that they read the book, or they read the first 5 chapters, which are the kind of basic tenets of the methodology. And then and to them it makes sense. I'm like, yeah, let's go do it. And then they go pull up their financials, look at it, and they're like, well, how does that fit? Because it's not a one-to-one fit. And Tracy brought the same point up on hers, is you have to be able to twist it and tweak it for your industry and for your business. And so, as you know, that's what the Master Your Profit course does, is it takes the basic methodology, but then it shows you all the multiple ways that you can twist it and turn it and pull it together for the interior design industry as a whole, and how to manipulate it to make it work for your business and your cash flow and the way money's coming in and out.
Yes, absolutely. Because I had done the same thing. I think you had done maybe a WCAA lunch and learn or something. And so I got the book, read the book, went, okay, yeah, this is what I need to do. But like, where do I start? Right. And so it was very helpful when you brought the class in, to like, okay, yeah, stepwise, this is what we need to do, and spelled out. So that's nice. And now we're working through I'll work through that again, but also work through the understanding the financials and the pricing without emotion. You know, I have to go back because I just do things in tiny steps to start, so my brain doesn't get totally overwhelmed. Yes. And just go back and work through it and get a little further each time. And that's a great point too, because the Understanding Your Financials and the Master Your Profit courses are both online and self-paced. And so that means that you can go through it at a rate that you can absorb, and you can go through it multiple times. It's not like you go through it once and you're done. You keep going through it until you have what you need out of it. And then you can wait 6 months to a year and kind of go through it again, and you may pick up something completely different based on where you are in your business. Right. Debbie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your success story for implementing Profit First. I really appreciate your time and all that you've shared. All right. Happy to do it. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks. So, did you have anything in common with Debbie? Anything at all? Seriously, it's not enough to be a master salesperson if we cannot control or manage the money once it flows into our business. It's imperative that we price appropriately and then manage that income to get the desired outcome, which is a salary and tax payments along with profit in the business. If you're interested in the same outcome and that's not what you have right now, or if you're in a continual struggle, let me help you. Master Your Profit was created to solve just that problem. Each lesson attacks a part of the problem that most entrepreneurs have, which is entrepreneurial poverty, by leading you down the path of discovery for your own business and financial health. And so with that information, you then can create a strategy and then tweak it that perfectly works for you. You can find all the details under courses on my website at scarletthreadconsulting.com. Don't continue to do business alone in a business that you love and not get paid or have funds set aside for profit or taxes. I promise you there's a better way, because profit just doesn't happen by accident.